Today's saga of the Holy Fuck soap opera begins 2 weeks after the Fuck the Rules episode with Krista drinking a bottle of wine. Don't miss the unexpected series of events that unfold in Krista's love affair. Welcome to Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Two gals on the prowl for enlightenment, sex, and all things holy. Holy Fuck. Each week, beauty alchemist and transformational coach and speaker, Katherine McClelland, and spiritual healer and life coach, Krista Kim, discuss navigating spiritual consciousness in a real human body. Stumbling through dating, relationships, and everyday life, all while maintaining a fucking sense of humor.
Hello, Krista.
Hello, Katherine.
We are having a day here at the Holy Fuck podcast. This is a whole new adventure for us, and we're thinking this might be culminating our season on a very high or low note. We're not really sure. But Krista, my dear friend, has had one hell of a week, and we are here to holy fuck with it.
Holy fuck my life is what I want to say right now. And so, people, I am pulling out the wine today for this.
When I came out to the podcast, Krista already had it poured. She already found her glass. And unfortunately, based on her roots, she chose a juice. No, it's not even a juice glass. It's an old jam jar.
Yeah, something like that. And I literally had the option when I looked in the cabinet of grabbing a wine glass or that. And I was like, I'll just have that. That just reminds me of home in Virginia.
Yeah, because in my house, we actually do have nice wine.
Yes, you do.
But Krista chose that. So I am usurping her ability to drink out of that by replacing it with a wine glass.
Well, and I actually chose a juice glass because maybe it'll be less noise so people won't actually hear I'm drinking. And then you're like, we're drinking.
We're telling you guys. Can you hear?
Oh,
there we go.
Cheers. And cheers. Katherine is having a nice, beautiful beer.
You can never let a girl drink alone on a Thursday afternoon. So
I appreciate your friendship in that way. But she's like, I think I need to have a beer to meet you where you're at. And I'm like, thank you.
Yes, we'll both be walking the rest of the afternoon. But nonetheless, here we are.
So, everybody.
Krista's had a week. And we're about to hear about it.
It's just been... Holy fuck. I mean, we could tell some cute stories. But you know what?
We should tell some cute stories.
Here's my cute stories. This week has been full of literally one thing after another happening to me.
It's true.
And every day I've shown up and been like, okay, I can handle that. Okay, I can handle that. And I have. I mean, it's things from my kid's car breaking down on the side of the 101 with my other kids in the car and having to drive 45 minutes to take them to Hollywood. And it's just very stressful in the 101. It's crazy nut town out there. And then
if you've never tried it, don't.
Yeah, my refrigerator breaking down, my sink overflowing in my garage, my boyfriend being gone for 2 weeks at his teaching certification, whatever thing he was getting, and just the stress of not being together, and then the stress of how it was when he was gone, and an ex-boyfriend.
Communication.
Yes, communication. My ex-boyfriend who has had a pattern of just kind of a little social stalking on all of my different sites. He returned, and so there was legal stuff to maybe deal with, and it was just wow, life felt really, really, really big the last week and a half, and I actually feel like I handled each step with such peace and grace, and I just kind of okay, that's happening, and keep returning to my tools, right?
We've got a big toolbox, and some days you can't find it.
Oh, that is definitely a good way to put it. And so, people out in podcast land, I have talked a lot about this beautiful relationship that I've been experiencing, probably now for 2 months. And cheers to that. Summer of Love 2018, right? And I really was so excited about how open my heart was and how in the moment I was and enjoying this new love. And
you should see her face. She's off in La La Land. She's flowing and speaking, and her eyes are closed. She's remembering all of those beautiful romantic feelings.
They were delicious. And I really felt like I had found somebody who could meet me where I'm at. And he is actually meeting me where I'm at, as it turns out. And so
But where you're at might be different than where you thought you were going to be at.
Yeah, isn't that always the case? We are
ending all these sentences and prepositions, and it bothers me.
Drink another.
Okay, I won't care after another few glasses of beer.
So he went away to his class for 2 weeks, and we spent the first week really connecting a lot and texting and messaging and sending little videos, and it was all fun. And we were just trying to keep that loving, sweet energy going, knowing that he was going through a kind of a stressful process with his schooling, and I was in my own world back here. And then the time came where my spidey senses went up, and I just felt a little disconnect. I felt, wow, today, I think Katherine she burped the beer up. That's awesome. Yay, holy fuck burp.
I hate burps.
Our first burp.
It's like our first baby.
Yeah. A burping baby. Anyways, I just had this sense of he's pulling back. He's not connecting with me. He's not reaching out as much as he was. I'm like, wow, he must really be in deep with the program he's going through. But of course, it started triggering all of my past abandonment issues and apparently present abandonment issues.
And Krista, like the rest of us, might have one or two insecurities that could get poked every once in a while. Does anybody else out there feel like you had an insecurity that when you notice someone's not communicating quite as much with you, that, like she said, her spidey senses start showing up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your spidey senses for a minute, because that's intuition, and that's really, really something we like to pay attention to. The reason we stay open and we stay authentic is that we have spidey senses and we want to know what they're saying.
Yeah, because I know I've said to you during the week, like, oh, my senses are up of like, oh, there's a disconnect, or he's pulling back, or something's not right. And you continue to reflect back like, well, you don't know that yet. And you don't know the truth yet. And he's having his process and you're having yours, and you can spend the week having a big story around it, or you can wait and see. And I really appreciate
I said that nicer than the way she just said it.
Of course she did. She's very, very delicate in her words. But I just took it as, you're right, I don't know all the information yet, and I can spend my week being upset about something that I don't know about, or I can just sit back and wait and see. And so we had some very challenging communication moments, and that were definitely not in the integrity in which I want to be in a relationship.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning the tone of voice, or the hanging up of the phone with each other, or like stuff like that really triggered what I had experienced in a past relationship recently. And it was bringing up my stuff in that way, and also really making clear for me, I am not going to be in a relationship with somebody who has that way of being.
Good thing to know.
Yeah. Or if they do have that thing that happens when we all get upset, we all do things we aren't proud of, but they have to be able to come back and be like, whoa, I'm sorry, I did that. That was this part operating. They need to be able to at least recognize it.
Yeah. And, even if they don't have an I'm sorry right off the bat, they can at least say, wow, I noticed I felt really tense with you when I was on the phone. I'm not usually that way. I wonder what's going on for me. Is there anything going on for you? Like, just to keep that conversation open and flowing, right? And
remember, we're talking about someone I thought was going to be able to meet me on all these communication levels, high skills, right?
Who was meeting you.
Who was meeting
me.
He
was meeting you. So it wasn't like you thought you made that up.
Right.
You felt very much met by him in the beginning. He was very capable of giving you lots of space to express yourself and all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that changed.
And then there was the switch that happened. And there was just this moment of me saying to him kind of, hey, maybe I should give you some space while you finish out this week in your program, because I know I've been through things like this. I know it's really stressful and a lot of energy starts moving, and I get it. And it went from that comment, which that's where he hung up on me, to silence for 5 days. No communication whatsoever.
And that is where we worked the story really hard.
Really hard. Because in that moment, if you're not calling me or reaching out to me, my mind, it just went crazy. It was like...
What were some of the stories that you started telling yourself?
he doesn't love me. He never loved me. He's punishing me because I hurt him in some way. So he's going to punish me with silence. Even though part of my response, part of the material that I was bringing up to him was, I really need you to hear me and listen to me in a loving way. And then my second thing was my abandonment issue. And I said, when I don't feel listened to, I feel abandoned and I don't feel cared for and loved.
And so that's really important for me.
So important to me. And I wrote him in a very sweet email. And I just said, I get that you might not be able to listen to me or might not want to work on that part right now in relationship. And that's okay. And I can't be in a relationship with someone who can't do that for me because that's my boundary. That's, at the very least, that's what I need. And that's where he went silent. And I was like, whoa. At the exact moment I'm saying I need to be listened to and I need to be not abandoned, complete silence and abandonment for 5 days. And so then I know his program's done. And then the next day I still haven't heard from him. And I'm like, you know what? I am not going to buy into the story yet. I'm still going to give him space. I'm going to go buy him his favorite things at the farmer's market, and I'm going to make sure they're at his house for when he returns because I know he's had a stressful week, and I want him to return and feel nurtured and cared for and loved.
So if anybody out there is thinking, are you kidding me? Couldn't you tell what was happening? What we're demonstrating, what Krista's demonstrating is that she decided to stay out of any story that she didn't know was true. She had no idea what was going on for him. And we have been in seminars that are week-long before, and you do get lost in them. And you can have big experiences. Or you can be doing all sorts of other things, but we didn't know what. And Krista was really clear. There was no way she wanted to suffer the entire week he was gone without communicating. She wanted to know when he got back, with her heart being as open as possible, hey, what happened last week? And if it was nothing, she would be able to tell right away because he would be like, what? What do you mean? Everything's fine. I just was really stuck in my program and it was so much stuff and I can't wait to tell you about, So she knew that that's how he would respond to her if it was nothing.
Right.
And then you also knew that you would know if it was something.
And I also knew that the not responding for 5 days is a something. Yeah. Because everybody has the time. Even if he was busy and didn't have a lot of headspace, everybody has the time for, I read your email. I love you. I don't have time and this program is so intense. Can we please talk next week? I look forward to seeing you.
And then there was always the tennis text.
Yes, we're on a group text. And he was very, capable of responding to those texts of whether he could make it to tennis or not, but couldn't give me a short sentence. So I knew something in my body was like, this
something was up, but you didn't choose what. That was an important thing.
I didn't choose to buy into the story yet, and I chose to keep working my process around the feelings of abandonment, the looking at the aspect of myself that is so desperate to be heard, the part of myself that maybe in past relationships haven't drawn boundaries, and then was mad at myself afterward, and like really looking at this time of like, I'm going to draw my boundary and I'm going to speak it out loud, and I have to be okay with what the answer is.
And I think one of the things that we really want to say about all this, or certainly that I want to say about all this, is that it's so easy for a misunderstanding to happen at a time like this, where we think someone's doing something wrong or they're not, but they're caught in some other thing that they're up to. And so really working your own process is the only way that you're going to get any freedom around it.
Right.
The only way that Krista gets any value from the experience is by making it her own. And some of you might not understand what I mean by that. You might think, yeah, she's a total schmuck. She's sitting there and we can all see the end coming. But the truth is that the abandonment issues are Krista's. Mm-hmm. It's her work to do. It's not his work to do that she's having a reaction to him.
And as long as I have the abandonment issue, somebody has to show up in my life and continuously abandon me in some way to keep spotlighting that it's still there, it's still there, it's still there.
Right. And what you were doing differently was that you said no to it.
I said
and then you got a bigger abandonment, right?
Right.
So curiously enough, in taking care of yourself,
mm-hmm.
you were actually feeding yourself, and it still didn't feel good.
Still didn't feel good. I still suffered those 5 days.
You did.
I
But much
suffered
less
immensely.
than if you had made up a story. Probably.
Yes. And so he finally reaches out via a text that's, a voice memo that disappears after 2 minutes, of course. And he says none of the terms of endearments, none of the sweet things he usually does. And I just knew in that instant, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go down well. Like, I need to prepare myself that he's breaking up. And so I spent the whole day suffering again of like, oh my God, like, how is it that 2 weeks ago we're in total love and it's us against the world, and 2 weeks later I haven't seen him and he can't even respond to a text or even call me on the phone like, he didn't need to send me a text message, right? If there's nothing wrong, he would just call me.
Right.
So I knew something was up. Cut to that night, I go over, we small talk, chit chat, and finally I just say, okay, like, this is enough is enough. I see your behavior. I see this, and this. I'm getting the sense that you're breaking up. I'd rather you just say your truth. And he was like, yeah, I think we should break up. And I was so shocked. I was so grateful that he was just honest, but I was so shocked that it could have gone from like 100 to nothing in 2 weeks.
Without really seeing each other.
Without having any communication. And basically his thinking is he has all these things he wants to do with his job and his life, and he feels like that us being together was taking him away from doing that. And I get that, because I do know that in those 2 months with him, we both did enmesh very quickly together. And we didn't do all the things that we needed to do work-wise and family-wise and all of that. And in my mind, when he went away for 2 weeks, I was really looking at that. I was like, wow, I did that. And when he comes back, I want to have a conversation of how can we do this differently?
Yeah.
How can we like be successful and do our stuff and get our bills paid and show up to pick our kids up and take care of our parents, do all of those real life things, be responsible, and still be in partnership. And so when he just called it, I was like, wow, we didn't even get the chance to work the pattern.
Right.
And that's what was pissing me off, because I was like, in this relationship, I want to get through all the patterns. I want to see my patterns and I want to face them. I want to take them head on. And I thought he was the person who could do that with me. And then the first time the pattern appears, I saw him running. I was like, fuck, I want to do this pattern because I don't want to relive it in my next relationship.
So how do you run? How do you run? When did you run? So what we're talking about is projection here. It's a psychological term for whatever's going on with you is what you are showing up with in the world. It isn't necessarily a one-to-one thing. It could be that someone's reflecting something to you. But there's a good chance that you're doing it also. So we're just taking a peek at it with Krista.
Right. So when I say like, oh, I'm pissed off that he's running, right?
Exactly.
I have to look back at my life and go, where are the places in my life that I'm running? And I notice that, there are certain times where maybe I'm in conversation with him and it gets, I wouldn't say, it gets intense. And my pattern is I really just want to walk in the other room, or I want to walk out the door and say, let's talk later. It's not running like I'm running like away, like calling it quits, but it's running. It's walking away instead of stepping in and saying, how can we move through this?
And how about, do you ever just run away by getting quiet or cold rather than?
I definitely go the cold, quiet route. And I've always thought it was just me taking some time and some silence, some time to like gather my thoughts.
Well, maybe it is also.
It is that, but I can see how to the other person it appears cold and withdrawing and running. And that's how I was viewing what he was doing to me. Right? And so we did not end, that conversation was very clarifying, meaning he was saying why he was wanting to call it quits, and I was being understanding of what his process had been and trying to put myself in his place and knowing that he needed some time to kind of reintegrate back into life. And I was fucking hurt and I couldn't believe it. And I was embarrassed. And there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, I've talked so much about this great love of my life on this podcast and now all of a sudden it's gone. And then I was like, but that's the point. That's what the holy fuck is. It's yes, we're leading these holy lives and we're all holy and we're all going through this beautiful shitstorm of a mess. And how are we going to be with ourselves when it gets messy?
Right.
And it's been messy.
Right. And as hard as it's been and as much suffering as you've been through, I have to say that with the knowledge that you weren't going to buy into a story you didn't know yet, you saved yourself a lot of heartache. You could have cried for an entire week before he got back.
True.
If you would have spent that time imagining the worst,
right.
Depending on your brain to tell you the worst case scenario. You could have called him and been screaming like a lunatic at him. You could have been badgering him.
Oh, the old me would have just like, if you broke up with me, I would be like, well, you did this, and it would have been combative. And I just wasn't that. I was like, I really hear that. And I was my way of being was very different this time. So I'm proud of myself for that. And then I went home and then I was up all night and I could just feel it in my body. My body just ached and ached and ached. And I haven't felt that in a very long time. And it gave me some compassion for some of my ex-partners where I had been the one breaking up. So I was really able to see the projection there of like, maybe in the past I'd look at my ex-partners and be like, just get over it and walk away and it's okay. Like no, it's in their body. It was in my body. It hurt.
Yeah, I could really hear that.
It was, and even waking up the next morning, what was coming forward is I feel so alone. I feel like I had found someone who was going to be my side-by-side partner and then they're not there anymore and I'm alone. And yet I had 6 of the most amazing women reaching out to me that day, showing up in these ways that were incredible to support me through this. And there was not one moment in the day where I was alone, unless it was out of choice. But There was not one moment where someone wasn't ready to pick me up off the floor and reflect back to me, this is not who you are. This story, this alone thing is not the truth of who you are. You are so loved and supported and worthy of love. And you have this tribe of fucking amazing women around you who are not going to let you forget who you are.
Brilliant. So brilliant.
So amazing.
So great. I mean, everyone, and it's not just women. It can, like Krista was alluding to, she gave her some empathy for sometimes when she hasn't had the level of feeling she's been the breaker-upper with. Because she has cut herself off or for some other way moved away from that sense of romantic and engagement with someone, But what's so great is all of us have that sense eventually that we are alone. When you go through a breakup, it happens. You just feel that really horrible
it's so raw.
Feeling like you're just a piece of shit in the universe,
Yay,
right? Yay, she made me say it. But I think what's amazing is that our friends and the people who care about us, and God knows we better find some, better really commit ourselves to some people.
Yeah.
Because they remind us, not because they're in our lives, but they remind us actually of our connection to the universe. We need them. And we do believe in them and we love them and we believe they love us. And all of that is true. But there's something bigger that happens inside those relationships where when the primary relationship with the man, when that breaks up and we somehow get triggered in our abandonment story, which maybe for you was triggered by a man in the first part, who knows, in your life, right?
Well, I know.
Well, I don't know yet. So maybe there's something to say. Maybe that abandonment thing was triggered early in your life by another man. So you need something to keep you from free falling into this place of belief and old story that somehow that man did something to you. And instead, you surround yourself with this group of angels who show up and they're like, we love you. We're here. We've got wine. We've got food. One of our friends is already on her way over there. Yeah. And we're all just waiting. What do you need? What do you need?
That was incredible. It's a great moment for me to always go back to, because even today in my journal I was writing, I feel so alone. And I have to remember that I'm not, and I have that tribe of women. And ultimately that feeling of being alone goes back to my spiritual connection. Mm-hmm. There is no way that we are alone as long as we are tapped into spirit. And that has been my go-to for the last couple of days. And I have been very challenged on the human level.
Right.
And so
what I was going to say
yes.
was that all of those friends around you are functioning as your angels to remind you of your spiritual connection. And what we don't realize is we get so attached to each individual relationship, we think we have to have them. Just like we have to have the man, just like we have to have the best friend, just like we have to have this one, just like I have to have you right now in some ways, and we have to have our other friends. But really, we're all tokens or angels. We're reminders that we're never alone. And that the truth is that the love that we share with a man or with each other is actually all the same love.
Yeah.
And when we feel that breaking...
It was devastation. It was a knowing that it was all perfect, and yet it still felt devastating. So that was interesting too. It's like, I know I'm supported by Spirit, and I know that everything that happens to me in my life, I have somehow called forward for my soul's highest good to learn and to clear and to heal. And so I knew that He was serving me in that way, in that moment. And I was really latching onto that and continuing to work that. And I had to be really gentle with myself of like, I'm human and this physically is hurting right now.
And what role do you think sex had in that?
A huge role, because I felt like my
sex girls.
Yeah, my body had really attached to Him on a physical level. And I had a deep feeling of I'd found my physical partner. I'd found that man who was going to be with me in this next phase of my life and really ground me into who I am. And I spend a lot of my days floating up with the angels and podcasting and doing my coaching. And it's all very, it's like up in the upper realms. And I really this year have been concentrating on bringing myself into the body. And for me, that meant sex and a partner and consciously seeking a person who could hold for me in that way. And I think you even said it the other day, like, wow, as you and I launch into this world in this big way, you were looking for, I think you said this, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking for a partner who can be strong enough to stand side by side with you and ground you and witness you and be with you as we blossom. And when you said that to me, I was like, yes, I want that. And I thought I had it, and this was that moment of, fuck it, it's gone. And it hadn't even gotten started yet.
Right.
That was the other part. You're upset? Come fucking talk to me. And like, we're both conscious human beings. Come talk to me. Let's do this. Let's not allow this to go on anymore.
And that your partner was actually saying, this is all I got.
He's like, I'm exhausted. This is all I got. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go with that. And so then I sat on that for 2 days and still reached out and said, I get that that's what you're going through and I'm here. And I feel like I need a little bit more closure around this. And so if you're up for talking at some point, I'm available. The next day he reached out and said, I'm available. Would you like to come over tonight? I'm like, yes. And so last night, so y'all, this is all she's opening the refrigerator again. Yes, I need a refill because this next part of the story.
The next part of the story gets even better.
Yeah, second round. God, that's a loud refrigerator. Like,
that's why we had to tell them what we were doing because there was no way to pretend like we're not doing our podcast in my house.
And so I go over there last night. So it had been a whole day of like waiting for this reunion. And he's like, oh, do you want to go get a glass of wine? So in my mind, if you say, I'm bringing wine or let's go get a glass of wine, there's
good.
Yeah, it sounds like there's opportunity for opening up and maybe some more dialogue and maybe an even coming back together.
So maybe you got your hopes up.
I got my hopes up a little bit because I would think, again, if someone's going to break up with you, that maybe they wouldn't like be inviting you out to wine. Okay. So I go over and we chit chat and have small talk and, we were just talking about everything. And finally I just looked at him and I'm like, we can continue chit-chatting or we can really do this. And he's like, okay, that's the label coming off the champagne. Can't wait to hear this pop. I hope it makes a big one. Here we go. She wants to celebrate and you guys don't even like understand. I told her I had a big moment last night. So She doesn't know what we're celebrating at the moment, and actually neither do I.
We're celebrating the evolution of consciousness. And this is what, sometimes Krista and I don't know what we're doing all day. Sometimes we work really, really hard to be loving, to be kind, to find our way sometimes in a place that feels really hard to do those things. And when we reflect back on the end of the day, we're like, what did we do today? Oh, we were kind. We were kind in situations that could have gone in many different directions. And I call that evolving. Mm-hmm. I call that my ability to choose, my free will, my dominion over what my limbic system might want me to do, which is yell at somebody or fight them or fall apart or completely lose it or hurt myself or do something to prove that somehow I've been wronged. And what I'm telling you is, we're not doing that. We're celebrating that life is happening, that evolution is happening, that we are on the learning line of life.
I'm so glad you said that about the limbic system because mine got
tweaked.
Yes. Okay. So
we're having champagne.
We're having champagne. Pop it. Ah! Don't hit me in the head and don't hit the cat. Don't break a window. And money shot. No?
Almost. Wait.
Push it, girl.
It just landed right above the big, beautiful plaque on the wall that says Queen.
Yes, it did. Okay, so.
Go, Krista.
Oh, this is so painful, you guys. It's because it has been such my soul opening to this podcast and really making a commitment to being honest with myself and with the listeners. And there are moments where I want to pull back out of shame and out of embarrassment. And I realize like those are the moments that need to be shared the most because those are the moments where everybody's felt that before. And if I pull back and don't share, then basically what I'm saying is that no one else out there should share their story as well.
So I just got the champagne glasses that are down that my parents gave us when I got engaged to my no longer fiance, figuring that's probably a good glass to drink out of today.
Do it. So we sat down and we started the conversation, and he told me about his last couple of days, and I was sitting and listening, and I had called Katherine and said, my intention for this conversation with him is really to get clear on how to move forward and to not put any expectation on him, but also to like kind of get some ground rules or boundaries or I don't know, just like a sense of what to expect. And Katherine, you were so brilliant in what you said to me. And what I really heard in that is make it about yourself. Don't say anything about him or how he hurt you or anything like that. Cheers. But to really just the best way I can do it is to stay in what my process was. And I really took that to heart and knew that that would be the best way to go about the evening.
So what we want to just call to your attention is that for each of us, our responsibility is taking care of ourselves. And our learning is about ourselves. And our hurt is about ourselves. And we can want to throw that on someone else, and we can want to eject them from our universe.
Which I did.
Oh, well, we all do this. Yeah. Be very clear. And I'm sure you know what we're talking about. But what we're offering today is what if it actually is always for your highest good? What if it actually, whatever is happening here in some way, whether it hurts or not, is actually for Krista to expand her ability to live through a letting go without experiencing it as abandonment. It's not necessarily abandonment. It's someone making a different choice.
And it was me saying, if spirit is letting this person go out of my life, can I trust that it's for a very good reason? Is it because you and I are so busy in our work world that I don't have the capacity to have this man cluttering up my brain space?
Cluttering up our space? Yeah. What was he doing here?
Yeah. Is it that reason? Or is it this lesson of... maybe he just needed to disappear because I have more to learn around the abandonment. I don't know.
I think, so Carolyn Mace, since we're talking about her all the time, we're going to bring her up again today. One of the things she suggests is that there are souls that come in with us and their jobs suck. Their jobs, they actually sign up. Now, I know this is kind of way out there, and most of you may not subscribe to this, but it is fun to think about sometimes. So you have this sort of souls that come in with you, and their jobs are to help your soul learn. So if this guy, this gentleman, sole purpose is to help Krista heal her abandonment issues that were started long before he showed up here. That she may or may not know the origins of. And maybe we all have abandonment issues just because we're souls on this planet. Who knows? They do seem pretty prevalent. But if his journey was about choosing to give her the gift of his leaving so she could learn, she could see how attached she is and how abandoned she feels when someone goes away, which it honestly has nothing to do with her. Someone leaving, if we really look clinically, which we hate to say, but clinically at this, someone choosing to go away has nothing to do with us. No. It is about their choice. They are saying, and he did say, I have something else I'm committed to doing. Right. This is getting in the way of that, and I need to make that choice.
Yeah. And so he, sitting across the table from me, and just looking angelic, and he looked for the first time in a month really grounded and present and beautiful and back in the space of how I knew him to be. Like, I really saw him for the truth of who he is. And I see that the last month where we were together, he was kind of all over the place because he was going to this program and there was stress and all this stuff was happening and it was a lot going on. And I had a sense that that wasn't the truth of him. And when he sat across from me, I was like, oh, here you are. And I even said that to him, like, here you are, I see you. And I just then had to get really real and said, I have some things to talk to you about that in order for me to move forward as friends, because we want to be friends. And if we're going to move forward as friends, I need some of this closure. And part of the closure is we had made a commitment to be monogamous to each other. And now moving forward, what does that look like? So I needed to know from him, are you backing away because you're overwhelmed with what you've gone through and you need some space? And in that case, in the back of your mind, you might want me to hold for you for a month and sit with you as you're through it and give you your space, but not do anything drastic. Did you come to the awareness that you don't love me and that we're not a good fit and you're ready to release me? And so I asked him, like, what is the status? Like, I want to know from you during this break, if you meet somebody out at a bar, are you going to have sex with them or are you not going to have sex with them? And I'm asking as your friend to be the first one to know, because I need that to make a decision. What
a beautiful expression of self-care and self-honoring and self-respect that was. It was tremendously courageous.
Huge. And he looked at me and he goes, well, does that go both ways? And I said, it goes both ways if you're asking for that, because I don't know whether you'd want to know. And he sat there for a minute. He goes, I don't think I would want to know whether you were dating someone or sleeping with someone new. And I'm like, okay, well, I won't mention that until you change your mind, or if you need something different, you can let me know. But I made it clear, I need to know if you're going to be out in the world having other relations, because that will help me. I can then move on. I can wrap closure around it and move on. If I think that you've gone through this huge spiritual experience and you're in flux, then as your partner and as your friend, I want to sit and hold for you. And I was clear, I'm not waiting for you. I don't have an expectation for you, but I'm holding for you for a couple of weeks to see where you're at and to check in before doing anything that might blow up the scenario, right?
Yeah.
And so we came to
someone else.
Yeah, like sleeping with somebody else. And so that felt good. And he was like, okay, you want to know? I don't want to know. I'm like, okay. And so I was literally about to leave his house because there wasn't much more to talk about at that point. He was exhausted and he needed to go to bed. And I saw that and it was enough processing. And I was just about to turn away. And then I looked back at him and I'm like, wow, the other thing I'm feeling really called to ask is, did you meet somebody in your program? And he's like, well, I met a lot of people in my program. I'm like, okay. What I'm really asking is, did you have an interaction with a woman on your program? He's like, I had a lot of interactions with women. I'm like, okay, let me be more clear. Did you sleep with another woman? And he took a really deep breath. And he said, yes. And my heart wanted to die in that moment. And it was like everything that I had talked about for the last 2 weeks. And when I got the spidey senses and I had even mentioned it to him, oh, are you with women? And he was like, pushed me away, like, how dare you ask me that? Or that's so ridiculous. And it's like, I knew in my heart that behavior wouldn't shift so dramatically without something like that. And so for you listening, I have not told Katherine this. I literally would not talk to her today because I was like, I can't even tell you what I experienced last night. And and I said it was big. And she's like, do we need champagne? And I'm like, well, I don't know.
We need champagne. Okay, so I just got to say,
is that what you were thinking I was going to say?
Fucking thing that came to my head is, you've been spared. Byron Katie,
yes,
quote unquote, you've been spared.
Yes.
This could look like a fucking disaster. I'm probably going to say fuck in the next, like probably 20 times in the next minute.
I'm fucking angry right now.
Of course you are. And of course you should be. That's allowed. Now, whether it should be at him or at this or at that, we will play with all that later. But anger is the right thing to have.
But you know what? I started to get angry. And I I literally stared him in the eyes, and my thought in my head was,
God bless you.
I am the light of Christ, and he too is the light of Christ. And I looked at him from that perspective, and I went, holy fuck. My pattern with all of my past boyfriends since I was 12 years old has been to cheat on them. And I knew in that moment, this is my work. And I wanted to like fling the glass across the room. I wanted to break the bottles. I wanted to like
swear at him,
swear and go ballistic and say, how dare you,
break
and do all of that.
Valuable in his house.
And I really I looked at him and I'm like, I'm so sorry you were in so much pain that that's what you needed to do. And I've been there and I love you. And yeah, I don't think I can move forward with you. And I know what that feels like. And I knew that was my moment to heal. Like, this wasn't
Absolutely.
About him. This was about, I've been working on this issue for myself for the last 3 or 4 years of my life. And the issue is, why is that my go-to mechanism? And what I've learned about myself is that I love these people I'm in partnership so much that I don't want to hurt them. So instead of breaking up with them, when I get claustrophobic and need to run, then I cheat. And I think that in some way that's saving them the hurt, and it's all fucked up and it's not right, but that has been the pattern. And with my last relationship, I was committed. I am not doing that pattern again. I'm healing this pattern once and for all. I'm brave enough. I'm strong enough. I have the words to say what I need, where my boundaries are, that I don't need to stay in a relationship where I feel like I need to cheat. And you know what? I told him, I was like, I had the opportunity to cheat 1 week ago. And I didn't do it. So it's a choice. And I finally get what all the people before me have said to me. It's a choice. And it's that moment of going, I can go do that and it'll feel good for about 15 seconds. And the aftermath of it is going to feel like shit because I've betrayed myself. I've betrayed my partner. I've betrayed who I am to my
integrity,
core. My integrity. Everything is betrayed in that moment. And so for me, last night, I walked out of his house.
Victory.
I mean, obviously in so much pain in a way, but there was this moment of like, oh my God, I succeeded. I completed this learning lesson in this life. I have not cheated in the last 2 relationships I've been in. And I did it consciously. And I made the choice. And what did I get brought? A partner who's working on the same pattern. And he's probably about 3 years behind me. And doesn't know what's ahead for him, or not, but doesn't know what's ahead for him, but is so out of his integrity in that way. And I see it operating in a low level with everything else in his life. And yes, I feel spared. There was that moment of like, thank you, God, for sparing me what this could have looked like. He could have come back and slept with me, and then I would have been really fucking pissed that we were exchanging energy in that way. Like,
oh, and never mind
diseases.
As we've been through some diseases this year.
But that's what made me so angry too, because I was like, I fucking went and got tested for you. I went through all of that shit, and then in the end, I was like, if those tests for whatever diseases weren't even about him, it was about me getting the diagnosis of the cancer stuff and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da and being saved from that. So he showed up to bring that forward.
He is an angel.
He's
an angel, and you've been spared from the human experience.
Yes.
Of having to have a man in your life who was not going to be honest and faithful to you. And that doesn't mean he's a bad person. It just means that's where he is in his journey. So raise your glass, Missy. Nope, you got to go for the champagne. She's got some glasses in front of her. We don't know what to do.
I've got champagne in
So
mine.
this is a celebration of your evolution.
It feels it. Thank you.
2 relationships where you have chosen to be honest, forthright, straightforward, in your integrity, in your loving, powerful, beautiful, strong, and let them go rather than let you go.
And it brings tears to my eyes because I had so much faith in him, had so much faith that this would be the relationship. And yeah, I'm crying right now, but it's like I had so much faith that we could do this together and we could be honest and we could ask for what we wanted. I mean, look at all the times where I was like, I don't want to be in a tied down relationship. I mean, and I was going back and forth, like, do we want to be monogamous? Like, part of me was like, why didn't he just fucking say from the beginning, I don't want to be monogamous. I just want to have an open relationship. And I said, okay.
Because that's not what it was about.
Because it wasn't what it was about. I had to learn this lesson. But there was anger at like, why didn't he just ask? And then we could have just been this open relationship this whole time. We could have not fallen into the love category. We could have just been beautiful sex partners together. And then it would all be fine. But we came in and committed to this love relationship. And then the minute, in my opinion, the minute it all got very real and very big, and I know for a fact I am this big fucking angel in his life, and the power of me is bringing him to his knees right now. And the fear around stepping up beside me is probably super scary.
So too bad. You have to step up beside me.
Exactly. And so he couldn't step up beside me. And so what he did was he ran to the lowest common denominator. And I've done that before in my past, so I get it.
What I love, Krista, is that you've done it and you get it. You know what was motivating him, but partly because you can see it in this relationship. And it may not be 100% true for him, but what's true for you is you can see what you've done, how destructive it's been, how painful it's been, how much you've used it against yourself because of losing your integrity with yourself. And now you have this huge victory. I didn't have any idea what happened, but I was all about we're having champagne today because I knew that something about what you went through last night, as painful as it was, and I just want you to know it's painful when your friends won't tell you what's going on, too.
She's like, let's talk. I'm like, nope, I'm not talking. I can't talk to you until I
just want to sit in my bed and do podcast edits.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is that he was sad. Mm-hmm. But he also went to this is really interesting. He was like, the days before I left, I was in so much pain around you, and I journaled about how many times you had hurt me and you did this to me. And I was just like, it was, in a way, he was making an excuse for his behavior. And he was saying, from the very beginning of our relationship, you just assumed I was going to cheat and you called that forward. And as shocking as that was to hear, there's an element that tied through with my last boyfriend who every day of our relationship accused me of cheating on him.
Right. I forgot that.
Yeah. And it wasn't true. And I had promised I am not doing that in this relationship. I'd committed I'm not doing that in this relationship. And so I got it in that moment because I had always said about my last boyfriend, I'd said to him, you're calling it forward. If you're going to accuse me every day of my life of cheating on you, then why not? Why shouldn't I just go cheat? Because I'm already being punished for it. So
did you
call it forward
with the very last person?
So what's interesting is that I can look back and go, well, here's the question. Was it intuition
On whose part?
On my part. Did I know from the beginning that that was what was going to happen? And so my spidey senses were up the entire time? Mm-hmm. Or did I have a...
Was it a story that you were
projecting? Is it a story I was projecting on him and then I called it forward? And to him, what his perspective is, the minute you start saying that that's what I'm going to do, you're setting in motion that that's what's going to happen.
Did you do that?
I actually feel like in this relationship, I didn't talk about that very much. And that wasn't really in my awareness with him that much. I knew of a perception of him that I had that I wasn't willing to buy into because I was holding him in a higher place. And he had said, that's who I was 10 years ago. I'm not that anymore. And I decided to trust in that. And so it was not a part of my daily dialogue to myself that I need to be worried about that.
And was it your dialogue with him?
No. The first time I really remember saying something about it was when he was away at school. It was a Saturday night, and he's not returning my texts and calls, and he kind of disappeared that night. And I said to him, are there women there? Are you with a woman? And he ignored the comments and kept going. And I was like, oh.
He kept texting about something else.
It was like, yeah, the dialogue became about something else. So, and he got actually kind of irritated that I was bringing that up. And I felt bad that I was bringing that up because I realized that's what my ex used to do to me. So it was like this full circle moment where I was healing that past relationship, that I was starting to say things like my ex had said to me to my new partner, and I was catching myself. And yet, in the end, I was right. So this balance of intuition or calling it forward is what the spiritual struggle is for me right now.
And I think what's interesting is this is going to get a little hard for you guys to follow because we're not using names, and we're obviously not using names on purpose. But 2 relationships ago, not the one we're talking about that just broke up this last day, that person never had any reason to believe that Krista was cheating on him at all. She spent all her time. He lived with her. He helped raise her kids. There was all sorts of stuff going on. There was pretty much almost no time for Krista to be doing that. And yet that was a very big thing for him. And it was frustrating for her. But he did know that she had done it in the past.
Right.
So he was afraid of it. And as she said, it felt like it was a little bit punishment before the fact and calling it forward. In your most recent relationship, in this situation, you had some fear of that. And the fear was based on what you were seeing around the way he interacts with women. He has a lot of clients that are women. We've talked about this. Anybody who's following our podcast knows this. And that both of you said to each other at one point, like, we need to make a clear line here because he sees you flirting that one night at your favorite place. You were flirting with someone and he drew a line, and then you drew a line. You said, okay, is this what we're doing, or is we not? Are we not? Right?
Yeah.
So what I want to say today is that you never know whether it's your intuition or the other person's thing until you ask, talk, express, and get to the bottom. Because sometimes with your 2 time ago partner, it wasn't you. You weren't doing it.
Totally
it
wasn't me at all.
His imagination, and he was really frustrating.
But that helped me reflect, like in this current relationship of like, oh, when I say those things to somebody, like, are there women there? It comes across as just gross and needy. And
yes, but still, it wasn't. The point I'm trying to make, I just want to make it really quickly, is with boyfriend 1, not this one, the one time ago, it was all his imagination. It was all hallucination. With you, it wasn't.
It wasn't. The only reason I brought up that comment was because I felt the withdrawal prior. There was days of the slowing up of the text. There was the slowing, and I could feel it. I'm very energetically sensitive, right? So I knew what was happening a week before I knew it or heard it. And so we have to wrap this up at some point, and there's so much here, but there is such this pattern and overlapping pattern of my history with cheating with...
So brave, Krista. Thank you for being so authentic and honest, because this can be I feel you're breaking through of some kind of story of shame with this.
Yes.
Like, it's just true. It's just how I learned to cope.
It was my coping
I'm not a
mechanism.
bad person.
And ultimately, it was because I loved the people I was with so much. I was too scared to hurt their feelings by breaking up with them.
Which we'll talk
Honestly.
about. We'll talk about the ego basis of that
For
later.
sure. But that was in my mind. That's what I was doing. And so I can see now, not good, not right, whatever. So I'm moving past it. But with him moving forward, I'm still in the middle of all of it, and my mind is swirling, and my heart is broken, and this dream that I thought was coming isn't coming, and my body is hurt. It's still aching for that lover that I thought was going to be mine. And now he shared himself with someone else, and so there's this part of me that goes, God, I will never be able to see him again in that way, in that purity. And yet when I left his house last night, I had a moment where I can leave angry, and I didn't. I walked over to him, and I hugged him with all the love I had in my heart. And we hugged for just a really long time, and I could feel the shield up. I could feel the wall up. And then I felt this just gasp of like pain just come through me of like, oh, like just a moaning. And then there was like 3 surges of this moaning cry that had to come out. And there were these 3 breaths of, I can only describe it as like Christ energy coming in, where I just breathed that, the truth of who I am in, that loving in. And then it went poof, and it disappeared. And I looked at him in the eyes and I said, whatever this was, whatever heart connections, tethers, whatever has been holding us together in this way, to have to play these roles in each other's life, I forgive you, I forgive me, I forgive the reasons why we had to experience this together. And I'm complete, and I love you. And I walked out the door. And I walked out with my hands in the air like a triumph. And then I get home and I'm still in that, wow, I felt like I had crossed over. Like I felt like I had completed a karmic circle of like, he came back and did to me what I've been doing to everybody. And so I got the full realization of that. And in this, not the first relationship, in the second relationship that I haven't done that pattern, it happens to me. There's no accident in that. And I just sat in the place of loving his soul for coming in and giving me this lesson, knowing that was a very painful lesson to give to me. And he did text me, and he's still hurt and angry at some of the things I said to him. And I just said, I'm so sorry that the things I said hurt you in that way. And I wish I would have had the opportunity to work those through with you. And then his last text was, I'm just really mad at myself. And so that's where we are today. And
of course, yes.
I'm letting go, and I'm moving forward. And there's a part of me that really still loves him because I see the similarity in what he's going through, and I know the pain that he's going through right now. And from a human level, I really feel that with him. And then there's the level of, but I have to hold for myself in such a bigger way because you guys, Katherine and I are stepping up in this world, and I can't have somebody by my side who's doing that. I have to have somebody who can be like, hey, that hurt my feelings and I love you, but let's talk about that. And I don't need to go stick my dick in someone else to make myself feel better. That's where I'm going. That's what I need by me.
God bless you. I knew it was a champagne day. I knew it was a champagne day because this is Freedom Day. This is when you claim your sovereignty over what could take you out. And congratulations.
Thank you.
I love you. You are powerful, beautiful, fantastic, wonderful, loving, kind, generous.
And I feel like I've passed the test on all levels because I didn't throw the champagne bottle in the corner and walk out of his room fucking cussing. I did it with love. And it was so present in me. And I was like, I started to do it different. And I just said, Krista, you can do this. Just release with love. And so...
And we just want to end We just want to end this with that awareness that we all have within us the capacity to have dominion over the part of us that wants to throw the fucking champagne bottle. And some days we will, and some days we won't. And when you can, move through that and use your own free will to guide your behavior into the person that you really want to be, you win.
Yeah.
You win the love. You don't win any prize. You just win
And
love.
the love doesn't go away.
No, you get
I still
stuck
love
with it.
him. He still loves me. The love's still there.
Yeah.
It's just shifting form. And so.
Exactly.
We love you guys.
We love you. Woo, thanks for hanging with us through this show.
That was a big one. And if you loved this and loved our honesty and loved our humanness and our emotion, our spirituality, and all the parts that make us holy fuck, we hope that you will like us on our Facebook page and Instagram and
subscribe to our podcast. Donate to us so we can keep this going and we can support girls all over the world in LA and beyond with getting their empowerment on.
Love it.
And caring for themselves and inviting men to meet them right where they are.
Yes.
Which we are doing now. Cheers.
We love you.
Ching.
Bye. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode where, unbeknownst to Katherine and Krista, the tape keeps rolling, capturing an intimate behind-the-scenes conversation. We want to connect with all you lovers of sex, spirituality, and all things holy, but unfortunately, you've got to make the first move, baby. That means heading over to holyfuckpodcast.com to find our new episodes and all the juicy deets about Katherine and Krista. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at holyfuckpodcast to get up-to-date info on our new episodes and current happenings. And if you are seeking a more one-on-one experience, check out Krista's offerings at kristakimcoaching.com and visit katherinemcclellan.com to see what's shaking in Katherine's world. Your spiritual evolution will thank you.